If there's one thing in 2020 that I was grateful for, it was the overwhelming burning clarity that I hated my photography. Let me explain. Over the past 6 years of my photography career, I have invested the majority of my energy building an international luxury wedding photography brand that really spoke to the inspiration that I had when I started in high school. I also spent my time building an editorial portrait photography brand that I don't really talk about on the channel. And through that, I can't really say that I ever grew to love my work. There was something missing that I just could never put my finger on, to say the least. Now, I have a really common story of how I started photography. I started my photography business unofficially my senior year of high school, where I would ask my friends to let me take their senior pictures for 50 bucks. And what was I thinking? 50 bucks, how was I ever gonna eat? I just wanted to take photos. My mom bought me my first camera. It was a Canon T5i, and over the years, my photography skills have grown. I did have a little bit of a break in college when I stopped really pushing my business because school was so overwhelming, and then that sapped the love out of my photography for a minute as well. And it wasn't until I became homeless that I decided to really give my photography business another push. As my experience in my field grew, so did my gear collection, and I eventually moved on to the 5D Mark III and then to the Canon 1DX Mark II for the past 2 years. And there was something about 2020 that just gave me, like probably you guys as well, a time to reflect. At the onset of this realization that I hated my photography, I didn't know it was that. I was pretty much searching for a sound that I hadn't heard before. So I took a spontaneous trip, a little road trip out to Cleveland to visit my friends at Zcam, and I was talking to them about how I wanted to start shooting analog film. And my friend Yaroslav Soltis, link in description, he gave me his Pentax Spotmatic SLR, a analog film camera, a little point and shoot film camera with actual professional controls on it so I can adjust my aperture. It wasn't like an automatic point and shoot camera, disposable one, but just an awesome camera. And I had already had 2 drinks in my system, so your boy was pretty emotional. I'm like, no, I can't take this. I cannot take this from you. Cameras to me are very sentimental, so the fact that he wanted to give it to me and he was excited about giving it to me, that just warms my heart and is really the start of me selling my 1DX Mark II to shoot film and to focus on cinematography as my only digital means of media right now. He also gave me a roll of expired Kodak tungsten film, which is really hard to come by, but he told me before I shoot it that I should shoot a few rolls of film. So the next 2 weeks after that, I planned a spontaneous trip out to Las Vegas with my mom, and I already knew what film stocks I was going to buy. I was going to buy Kodak Portra 400, Pro 400H, Ektar 100, and then I chose a black and white film stock Ilford HP5 because those are all the film stocks that I'm familiar with respect to my Lightroom presets. I was familiar with the tones of what was emulated, I just had never shot film before. And it was right away in Las Vegas, just walking around town, having a love for photography that I haven't had since I was in high school. I was shooting for myself again. I was taking pictures of things that I wanted, and I took so many random photos just because I'm like, how will this come out on film? And this photo right here was the very first photo that I took on Ektar 100 while I was in Las Vegas. And I did not know it was gonna come out like that. But when I scanned this, when I got home and I got all the developing stuff and I scanned it, I'm like, whoa, this looks amazing. And so basically when I was in Vegas, I went and I shot all 3 rolls of film. And it was then that I really kind of honed in on what I liked in what I didn't like. I couldn't remember all the settings that I had, and I was using the in-camera meter that was on the camera, which sometimes was dodgy with exposure, but I did learn a lot from my first 3 rolls of film. There were quite a few photos that were underexposed, and to be honest, that's really my personal style, is underexposed film. Don't ask me why, but I think it's just the nostalgia. It reminds me of childhood vacations. It reminds me of going to the grocery store to drop off your film to have it developed, and then you get it back and the photos just felt alive when you looked at them. But there's something about that underexposed look. Now, this was not going to transfer over well into my professional work though. I can't convince brides, especially with my current portfolio right now, to let me shoot their wedding underexposed in film and be like, hey, it's gonna look like your old family vacation. There might actually be a market out there for that, but I'm not quite sure. I digress. So I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the move I wanted to make. So I still haven't shot that Kodak tungsten film, if you're wondering about that. That will be on another video in this channel. But I learned a lot from that trip. I learned, I pushed 1 roll of film. It was my Pro 400H. That was the roll of film I chose to push. And that's just because when I ended up developing and scanning the first 2 rolls, I realized that I tended to underexpose, so I wanted to see what pushing that film would do. I've also definitely figured out what my favorite film stocks are. Surprisingly, Portra 400 is not really up there. I'm in love with Ektar 100. I'm in love with Kodak Gold right now too. When it comes to photographing black people, it is going to be Pro 400H, another video for a different time. But Portra 400, I like it, it's popular, and I shoot with it, but it's just not something that I've really gotten into. So one of the coolest things that I've been able to do so far is that I have gotten a new film camera, and it's the Canon EOS 1N. And yes, it reminds you just of the 1DX Mark II, but it is not. It is definitely a film camera, more maybe 5D Mark III with the battery grip on it. And I am just in love, guys. I am in love with this film camera. And so that's one of the investments that I've gotten so far. Film has taught me a few things though. It's taught me to be more present. I can't just shoot away anymore and delete all the photos that I don't like. I have to sit there and think every single shot through. And I've also learned with film to be more content because I can't see the back of the camera. So once I feel pretty confident that the shot that I took was in focus and that I got the framing I wanted right, which usually only takes once, then I move on to the next part of the location, maybe the next pose that I may be working with my model. And it's allowed me to leave each session happy and not like overwhelmed with thoughts like, oh, I can't wait to get back and, edit these. I still have the I can't wait to get back and develop these, but it's not like I'm overwhelmed with how much I have. So I love the contentness with it. I've told you guys that I figured out what my personal style is and then what my more so editorial work style is with respect to weddings and portraits. I've done a number of shoots on film since then. One of my favorite ones recently was shot on Kodak Gold 200 with my good friend Alana. We just went out to a local town nearby and we shot some awesome editorial styled portraits. The theme of the photo shoot was kind of old school nostalgia, and she chose some upcycled Levi clothes that she had created herself, and the shoot came out great. I'm probably going to submit them to Levi at some point because the images just look great. I've also had the opportunity to do a couple session. These photos were actually shot on Pro 400H, and I just love the way that the skin tones rendered. I love the way that the photos feel, and that one was actually shot on the Pentax Spotmatic as well. And it was that photo shoot that made me realize you need to get a professional camera if you're going to be shooting film. So I just wanted to get on today and tell you guys this quick story and why I'm actually in love with photography again. This is the start of me talking about film on this channel. I can't wait to talk about the gear that I'm going to be using, the films that I love, to do reviews on films. It's so exciting. and I can't wait to share this piece of my life with you guys. So if you made it to the end of this video, leave me a comment down below and tell me if film photography recently has been catching your eye more and more. Also, be sure to give me a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and turn on those post notifications if you have not. Be sure to follow me on my social media. The links are in the description down below, as well as the YouTube fam. Their links are also in the description down below. My beautiful people, if you are ever feeling uninspired, uncreative, or just want to give up on life, remember, every day airplanes take off against the wind. Keep climbing, stay inspired, and as always, stay fabulous. My name is Sydney, and I love you guys so much. I'll see you next time. Peace out.